It began with the hunts. The men brought back more than ever before, game piling high in the village square, pelts drying in the sun. There were feasts, laughter, and stories of prosperity that spread far and wide. But I could feel it even then. Something was wrong. The forest had always been our lifeline, its game feeding us, its timber keeping our homes warm through bitter winters. But there was a balance, an unspoken understanding between the hunters and the woods. My father used to tell me, "Take only what you need, Timo, or the forest will take from you." Back then, I thought it was just one of his old warnings. Now, I know better. The change came quietly. At first, the air in the forest seemed heavier, its silence stretching longer than usual. Then the animals became scarce. Hunters returned empty-handed, muttering about tracks that vanished into nothing. But the worst was the trees. Deep in the woods, some of the trees began to bleed. Their bark split open to reveal a raw, pulsating flesh beneath, veins twisting like roots into the ground. It wasn't natural, wasn't right, but the villagers ignored it, dismissed it as an oddity. Then people began disappearing. Old Mr. Garrison went out to check his traps one morning and never came back. They found his hat near one of those bleeding trees, but nothing else. Then it was Mary Ann's father, taken during a night hunt. One by one, the forest swallowed them. Some said it was wolves or bears, but I knew better. I heard the whispers in the village, the hushed stories of something moving through the trees at night, but something tall, impossibly thin, its body glistening like exposed muscle. The harvest, they called it. An old legend, they said, a spirit that protected the forest from those who took too much. I wanted to believe it was just another story, until the night I saw it myself. It was late. The moon hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over the village. I heard a scream, sharp and desperate, and ran outside. That's when I saw it. The creature stood at the edge of the woods, its elongated limbs stretching unnaturally, its head tilting as though listening. In its grasp was the blacksmith's apprentice, his body limp. Before I could shout or move, it disappeared into the trees, faster than anything I'd ever seen. The village was paralyzed with fear. We boarded up our windows, whispered prayers, and waited. But waiting wasn't enough for me. I couldn't just sit by while the forest claimed more lives. I gathered a group of hunters, 5 of us in total, and we set out to find answers. We armed ourselves with rifles and blades, though none of us truly believed they would do much against whatever was out there. The deeper we went into the forest, the stranger it became. The air was thick, almost suffocating, and the trees seemed to watch us. Their roots writhed underfoot, slick and alive. The whispers of the wind carried voices, fragmented and unintelligible. It struck just as we reached the bleeding trees. One moment we were standing in a circle, scanning the shadows. The next, it was among us. The harvest moved like a shadow, its limbs blurring as it struck. Thomas was the first to fall. His scream cut short as it dragged him into the darkness. Then came Peter, pulled into the air as though weightless. We fired our rifles, but the bullets barely seemed to slow it down. By the time it disappeared, only I remained, trembling and clutching my knife like a child's toy. I ran, stumbling through the forest until I reached the heart of it. The tree stood there impossibly tall, its branches reaching into the heavens. Its roots sprawled like veins, pulsating with a rhythm that mirrored a heartbeat. Fireflies swirled around it, their golden light illuminating the grotesque beauty of the place. I knew, without a doubt, that this was the source of everything. This was where the harvest was born, where it returned after each hunt. The truth hit me like a blow. The forest wasn't punishing us out of malice. It was trying to restore balance. We had taken too much, disrupted the fragile equilibrium that had sustained us for generations. And now, the only way to end it was to give the forest what it was owed. I knelt before the tree, my heart pounding. "I've come to make it right," I said, my voice shaking. "Take me. Let this end." The harvest emerged from the shadows, its towering form even more terrifying up close. It studied me, though it had no eyes, and extended a hand. I closed my eyes, bracing for pain, but instead felt warmth, a connection. Images flooded my mind, memories of the forest, its ancient wisdom, its suffering at our hands. And then, silence. I remember what happened next. When I opened my eyes, the harvest was gone, and the tree stood quiet. The forest felt different, lighter, as though a weight had been lifted. I knew my time was over, that I wouldn't leave this place, but I also knew the village would be safe. For now, weeks later, the village is quiet, the disappearances have stopped, and the forest has returned to its natural state. The bleeding trees are gone, and the air is no longer heavy with fear. But Timo never returned. I found his letter under my pillow, written in his messy scrawl. I've read it 100 times, each word a mixture of pain and pride. He gave himself to save us, to save me. The villagers speak of him now with reverence, a hero who faced the harvest and restored balance. But the forest still watches. I can feel it, its presence lingering at the edge of the village. We've learned to respect its boundaries, to take only what we need and no more. Timo's sacrifice will not be forgotten. And yet, the mystery remains. What is the harvest truly? A spirit? A guardian? Or something far older than we can comprehend? Perhaps some questions are meant to stay unanswered. For Timo, for all of us,